Welcome back, everyone. Today we are going to start the process of creating your own starter. The things that we will need to do this are going to be as follows. The small spatula, if you possibly have one. We will need 2 jars that are the same size. A lid for the jars. If you don't have a lid, you can always use a coffee filter. And you can secure that to the bottle with an elastic or rubber band. We will be using this bowl, but later on in the episodes. And a weight scale. Also, I just want to mention you will want to use spring water or filtered water. Town or city water often contains chlorine, and that will inhibit or kill the starter before we begin, so we don't want that.
Hey, so we're back. So we're going with day 1 mix today, which is, of course, just going to start with some water, which is going to be 50 grams. We zeroed our scale here. Yeah, I go a little bit over, but that's okay. Try that. So we zeroed our scale. Next we will be adding 20 grams of whole wheat flour. Next, we will be adding 25 grams of bread flour or unbleached all-purpose flour, whichever one you have. And for today, we just want to add that with a spoon or a measuring cup. Zeroing out the scale again. 25 grams.
So that would be the water and the flours added for today's mix on day 1. So I'm just going to stir this up really well, make sure there's no dry bits remaining. So let me get rid of the scale here first, and then we'll stir it.
That's why we needed our little mini spatula. Scraping down the sides, get them as clean as we can. And with a clean wet cloth, we're just going to wipe off the top of the jar. Again, just wanting to keep everything very clean. All right. So, you can see that. Not much today, just mixed together. And we're going to cover it now.
Okay, let's go ahead and put our filter on our jar. I'm going to secure that with a rubber band. If you have a lid, you can use that, but you do not want to over tighten the jar, so leave it slightly loosened on the top. The reason for this is because starter needs to have air circulation. It allows for the fermentation. It also allows the starter to accept wild occurring yeast and good bacteria from the air. So that's why I choose to use the coffee filter and the rubber band. So let's set our starter aside now and let it rest again for 24 hours, and we will be back to show you what the next steps are tomorrow morning. Welcome back to day 2, everyone. Let me just grab the starter here. I just want to show you what it looks like on day 2. So not much activity. We don't expect that on day 2 for sure. There's a small little bit of bubbling on the side. I'll show that to you in a second. You can see there's just a small bit of activity, not much. So let's continue on. So the first thing we want to do is we want to measure out 25 grams of starter from our day 1 jar. It's a little thick, so just bear with me. So 21, a little bit more. Okay, so we got about 26, 27. That's good. We'll go with that. So we're going to be adding this to a clean jar, but we're also going to be adding filtered water. I think I forgot to mention that yesterday. I'm not sure. So we do filtered water or spring water because usually town water or city water is chlorinated, and that would actually inhibit or kill the starter before it even gets going. So that is one really important tip that you want to use. So we're going to put 50 grams in the clean jar now with our starter.
Okay.
And next we will be adding our flours. Now today I have changed it from 45 grams of flour total on the first day to 50. We're going to try to stay in that range of 50 grams of flour. It doesn't matter what combination you use. Today I'm using 15 grams of whole wheat and then 35 grams of bread flour or unbleached all-purpose flour if that's what you're using. Those amounts don't matter as long as you get a total of 50 from the flour. So I'm just giving it enough to give it that little boost for the nutrients from the whole grain, and then we're going to move on. But for today, so again, 15 grams of whole wheat, and I'll be 35 grams of the bread flour in my case. And just going to get it all stirred together, and then we'll go on to the next step. So with the total amounts of flours added into our jar now, I'm going to grab the spatula, and here we go. We're going to stir this together really well. I just want you to stir it until it's all moistened. There's no dry bits remaining. And then with that done, we're going to cover it with our coffee filter and the elastic again. We'll be back in 24 hours to show you if we have any progress or any changes. So we'll see you then.
Hi everyone. So we're back. We're on day 3. So interestingly enough, you're going to see that there actually is some bubbly activity happening. Now, this is sometimes works like this, sometimes doesn't. If you are not seeing this on yours, don't worry, we're going to continue on. We are going to use the measuring cup so you can see it a little better, hopefully. So as with the previous days, we're going to do the same feeding. So we're starting with our 50 grams of water. And we want a total amount of flour of 50 grams as well. So with the whole wheat, today we're going to go with 25. Or actually, let's go with 20. Okay, and the remainder will be bread flour. All right.
And the last thing we are adding to our mixture is going to be our 25 grams of starter from our day 2 jar. Okay, we're going to just weigh this out and then we're going to give it a really good stir. So of course the remainder of the starter you will be discarding. But not to worry, once the starter is created, you actually can get very good at the amounts and not have a lot of wastage. We use any extra discard starter for muffin and cake recipes, pancakes, waffles. There's a myriad of things that it can be used for. If you're worried about that, don't be, because I'm always happy to share extra recipes, and I have a few on here on the channel as well to go with that if you want to find a way to use it up. And so we have everything completed now. Just going to scrape down sides of the jar here again. And we're going to get it covered up with a coffee filter and elastic again. We're going to be setting it aside for 24 hours and I'll be back to show you if there's any changes and we can move on to the next steps. Hi and welcome back everyone to day 4. Before we go on with our feeding, I just wanted to show you how nice and bubbly and active our starter is. If you're not seeing this, as long as everything is clean looking in your jar, then please continue with your feedings. Your house may be cooler, so it may take longer for that activity to start. So let's move on. So again, starting with our 50 grams of room temperature water.
We're going to go 25 grams today of the whole wheat. Okay, and then we're going to go 25 grams of either the bread flour or the unbleached all-purpose white flour that you're using, whichever you're doing. 0 scale. There'll be 25 grams of starter going in here as well. Scale away. Just going to give it a really nice stir. Okay. And again, we're going to the clean jar. The thing is, of course, I know I don't have to tell you this, but if you're always using clean equipment, you're going to have a way better chance of having good, healthy starter be created. So, yeah. A little bit more. Okay. Once again, scrape down the sides of the jar. And again, clean wet cloth, lifting off the top of the lid.
And we're going to reach for our coffee filter once again. Cover our jar. We'll be letting it rest overnight as usual for 24 hours at room temperature or in a warm place on your counter maybe. And we'll continue on with next steps tomorrow. Welcome back to day 5, everyone, of Create Your Own Starter. So going over what happened last night with our starter, we can see here that the starter rose up to the top. It dropped back down, but that is the way a starter works. And although it doesn't look as bubbly as it did the other day on top, it is working. So let's continue on with our next feeding. We're going to go with our 50 grams of water. $25 grams of the starter. I'm going to give this a quick stir. And we're going to add our flours. So now we've added 15 grams of whole wheat flour to our starter and water and 35 grams of the bread flour. I'm going to stir this up really well and get it into a clean jar again. Okay, let's stir this to combine. Okay, and we're going to cover it with our coffee filter again. First, we're going to wipe off the lid as usual. So a quick wipe, clean up our jar. Last filter back on here with our elastic and setting this one aside again for 24 hours again. Hi everyone and welcome back to day 6. So just going over our results with our starter today before we go on. So the starter rose up first here, then dropped back down. So I feel confident enough now that this is being active and bubbly enough to give it a really good feeding, and we will go to the next steps. Okay, so again, as I said, I feel like we're pretty confident this starter is bubbly, so we're going to give it a really good feed today because we're actually going to try making a single loaf of bread with this tomorrow to see how it goes. So in order to do that, we're going to be putting 75 grams of water. Perfect. There we go. That's what I like to call close enough, Ace.
Yeah, no, she had 75.
Usually not that precise when we're trying to do it, but
I
today
am
it's good.
holding the camera today.
Okay. Stirring this out. Since we're going with 75 grams of flour, we're going to go 25 whole wheat.
Oh,
Nope, a little bit too much. No worries. All we do there is we know we want 75, so we just put the difference with the bread flour. Everything's fixable. Just a smidge more.
Okay, 74, calling that close enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're gonna take that off of there.
Take that off, and now we're gonna stir it up.
Stir it well together. Everything mixed through. Alright, I'm just gonna get my clean jar ready and we'll be back shortly. Hey guys, I'm gonna try to make it a little easier on myself when it comes to putting the starter in the clean jar this time. So, we're just gonna finish filling up our jar with the mixture and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, so all into our jar and we're doing the same thing, you know what I'm always preaching. And that's to get that jar nice and clean as you can, because we don't want anything foreign growing here. We want to keep everything very clean. Okay. All right, and again, you know the drill. Coffee filter on the jar. And we're gonna let it sit for 24 hours. Now I will come back if this rises up really high to show you, and because of at that stage, if it is a rose, like say double or higher, I'll want to put it in the fridge to hold the bubbly and activity.
Do we have an elastic band to show where it is?
Oh, that explains it. Okay.
Sometimes
So, yeah,
Mr.
guys,
A's can be a helpful hand, sometimes not.
You are most of the time. Come on now. All right.
I know.
So we'll set it aside, and if it gets bubbly and active again, we'll be back to show you, and I'll show you why and explain a little bit about why it's going to go into the fridge to hold it. All right. We're good for now.
See you later.
Hey guys, so we're back. It's only 2 hours later, and we wanted to show you that the starter has definitely become very bubbly, active, and has doubled in size, just over. So we are going to put it in the refrigerator now. That'll hold the state that it's at right now. We'll do one more final feeding in the morning, and then when it doubles, we will try our loaf of bread. So we'll see you back then. So hey everyone, so it's the next morning. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the fact that we put this starter in the refrigerator when it was on the way up, as you saw last night. The reason we do that is because it holds it kind of in stasis or at that point. And it may go down in the refrigerator, which it did a little bit. If I was to leave this on the counter now for like say 3 hours, you would see it rise back up again because it was put in the fridge when it was on the way up or rising up. So I'm going to just go ahead now and give it the one final feeding before we make our loaf of bread. So what we have here is 2 jars that are exactly the same size. And what we want to do to decide how much we're going to feed our starter right now is check to see what the weight is. So we take the empty jar away after we've teared it out. Put the jar on here that has the starter in it, and you can see it's about 208. So with starter, you must feed it at minimum the equal amount of what the weight is. So it is 200 grams right now. We're going to boost that up. We're actually going to go, so 1 to 1 to 1 ratio, which means 1 part starter will be equal to the 1 part of water and to the 1 part of flour. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is add our filtered or spring water, whichever you have. We're just going to run it up to 200, okay, as close as we can. Okay, that's actually dead on. Okay, so 200. Let me reach for the flour there now. So we're zeroed out our scale again. And we're going to add our whole wheat here. Okay, so we're going to go approximately 40 of the whole wheat. And the rest is going to be bread flour, of course. Fantastic. We got 208. So now I'm just going to stir this up. Well, actually, let's get the starter in right away. Okay, so let's pour our starter in. Oh, tear out our scale first. Okay, so we can get the rest of this out of here. Now, when you're adding your starter from the original jar you have it in, if you end up with a little bit less, as long as your flour and water is higher than the starter, that's not an issue. Okay, so we did end up with a little bit less. I just went off camera and scraped out what I could out of the jar. So we are ending up with 181 of starter, which is fine because our flour and water is just a little bit higher than that. So it's pretty close to the 1:1 equal ratios. And if there's a little bit less starter, that's okay. So let's go ahead and get this all stirred up. Okay. Did you already start it?
Yes, I started it.
Funny guy.
I know, what can I
Okay.
say?
Okay, guys, so we got everything stirred together really well now. And you're going to see that we're going to a slightly larger container because we fed the starter really good feed, and this is going to rise up really well, so we want to make sure we have lots of room. Hopefully we don't have overflow again, but you never know. I'm putting it into a clean container here for you. I can't speak. A clear container so you can see what's happening. So let me see if I can scrape just a little bit more out. Ooh, let's make a mess.
Make a mess. Well, you know what they say, you can't make a mess unless...
You know, the food's not good unless you make a mess.
That's right.
Something.
Yeah, that's something like that, yeah.
One of my aunties used to say that. Okay, so there we go.
Mom used to say that too.
Sure. Okay, so we are good. And don't have to worry about the wiping this time because look at it. Nice and clean on the edges. Well,
You
just
get the
dry
one
off.
side on the...
Oh, thank you, dear.
You're welcome, love.
I know, that's what you're there for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's get that little bit. It's probably going to rise up past that anyway, but we're okay. All right.
There we go.
So, just a little bit of the water off the top here. You know me. Okay, we're going to set that aside to rise. This is early in the morning here.
So
Let's
we
see.
can see that it's at 0.5 or basically 0.5 liter or 0.5 a quart.
And we'll see how far we get.
We won't use a rubber band for that.
Oh, yes, because we got a nice marker
That's
here.
right.
Yeah. So we'll be back to show you what that looks like in a couple hours.
See you in a bit.
Hi again, so we're back. So it's been 3 hours in, guys. We definitely have an active bubbly starter that is ready to make a loaf of bread. So we are going to get all the ingredients together and we'll be back with a recipe for just a single loaf today for those of you who are living alone and would like to have a smaller batch.
So we're not going to be showing the full mixing of our single loaf of bread today. We have provided you with 2 other episodes that are covering sourdough sandwich bread. So this is going to be a little quick glimpse and then over to the results to show you how well the starter did for rising the bread today. So here's our loaf of bread. It looks so good. Cannot wait to try it. So nicely browned. It rose perfectly in the pan that we put it in. For the first time using this starter, I am so pleased. I hope it will encourage you to start your own sourdough starter. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave them in the comments and I will try to get to them in a timely manner. Thank you again for everything, and to the subscribers, we appreciate you, the likes, the comments, everything. Thank you.